Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Gallery with Laura Ali. I am your host, Laura Ali, and today we are going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up Nancy Brophy, her cross examination. We're going to get into it and be done with this. My mindfulness alert. I have to remember to be mindful. Uh, anyway, so yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. I noticed in the last video that the audio was picking up from the the recording, and that's because I'm using a mic instead of my headphones like I did the first video. So, lesson learned, I'm gonna try the mute button. Hopefully that works. And so when I mute it, it won't pick up on, the recording won't pick up. So let's see. Let's see. I make no promises, but hopefully I'm really hoping it works, guys. I'm trying to one day at a time. One day at a time. Okay? That's all we can do is one day at a time. Okay. So, we're picking up like the attorney, the defense attorney had a matter for the court, and they take like a few minutes with that matter, and then court resumes about 6 minutes later. So we're gonna watch that part really quickly, and then we're gonna skip to the last like 30 minutes or so because they have like a morning break. So let's try this. So I'm gonna do play. Oh, let's transition over. See, this is one day at a time. Okay, so they're actually on break now.
I need to stand. Yes.
Okay, so let me see if this is even. I'm gonna mute myself.
My
Wait, I unmuted, I think. I went too far. Hold
You said you became obsessed with
I would,
firearms.
You can ask the next question.
Ms. Brophy, I'm going to come back.
on. Okay, we're back. We're back.
But I believe your answer was that you did have the discovery, you reviewed it.
yes,
Okay. And you do realize or did realize that this slide barrel that was outstanding was an essential issue in this case.
yes, probably 8 months after my arrest, I realized that.
Okay. And you understand that today.
Yes,
Now, you've testified, well, we've heard different things from your interview with the police and what you've said on the stand, that you sort of hated guns, you didn't like them, but then you became interested in them for writing, then for safety, and then you seem to have taken quite an interest after that in guns. Is that safe to say?
Right.
I would say the
Right.
irony is that we bought a gun to protect us, and it didn't protect us.
I'm just asking about your interest in guns.
My interest in guns were twofold. One is the protection, which it didn't work, and second is the writing, which has nothing to do with guns, but has to do with gun pieces.
Right. But you said you became obsessed with
I was,
firearms.
I was obsessed with the writing and the gun pieces, not with firearms. I wasn't investigating AR-15s or shotguns or anything like that.
Just Glocks.
Just a handgun that would protect my character.
And you did a lot of research online.
Not yet. I've started it.
Not yet.
Didn't you just testify? Like,
That I started researching, that I research online all the time, but I wasn't finished researching by any stretch of the imagination.
you'd been to a gun show,
Yes,
bought a gun,
yes,
bought a ghost gun, went through that whole process.
right.
When did you go to the gun range?
I never have been to a gun range.
Never been to a gun range. So you're doing this research, you're getting ready to do this writing, you have all these people around you that know about guns and own guns and have maybe even done some research themselves for their own books.
Mhm.
Why didn't you ever talk to Nathaniel about guns?
Okay, I'm gonna get this so it's actually smooth. But I think it's hysterical that she's never been to a gun range. Now I can't remember. I don't think it's come up just yet. But the Vernonia location, I think she would drive out there if I'm not mistaken. And she was going to looking for property or looking for a house or whatever. but really she was going up there to shoot a gun. And I think she knew, like, if I go to a gun range, if I really show that I'm trying to perfect my shot, then that could look like I'm, trying to kill my husband. But also her ego, I could totally see her being like, "Oh, I could shoot a gun." Although I've never shot a gun a day in my life, I can shoot a gun, no big deal. Like, I could totally see her acting like that. So I just thought that was funny that she just says that, like, so indignantly, like, "Oh, I've never been to a gun range." Like, okay, yeah, so what?
I have talked to Nathaniel about guns. There was a point I was writing a story early on, and I told him I needed a gun, a type of gun that I could have my hero use, and he gave me the name and explained why.
When was that?
Well, it was probably 2010. It had been a while before.
So in 2018, 2017, 2018, you had known for years that Nathaniel had knowledge about guns.
Yes, but sorry,
Did you talk to Dan's brothers about guns?
they owned them, or at least Bill owned them.
And did you talk to Tanya Medlin and her husband about guns?
Apparently, Dan talked to him more than I did, but yeah.
And Terry Reed?
No, I don't think Terry Reed and I discussed guns at all.
What about your other writer friends, including Jesse Smith?
Jesse Smith, Salute. I probably talked briefly to Linda Smith, but I knew how she felt. And Linda Smith does not write that kind of a story anyway.
Why didn't you talk to Matt Gitchell about guns?
Well, I didn't know that he was an authority.
Why not follow up with Tony Hall, who you knew was an authority?
Tony Hall was really Dan's friend. I mean, I knew him, but I never ran into him.
Why didn't you do any research at the gun show or go to a gun store and talk to them?
Because I wasn't ready to write the story yet.
Oh,
That
right.
would have come.
In fact, the company that you bought the gun through, J&B Firearms, that's actually a gun store that's very close to your house, right?
It turned out to be, yeah.
They had recommended that you go to Threat Dynamics, or that gun range that we've seen a couple of times. You never went to Threat Dynamics?
Never.
You've never gone to the Tri-County Gun Club?
Is that the one that we keep talking about out on 26?
No.
Oh, well, no, I've never been there.
Where were you going on the 26th when you were out near that gun range?
Oh, on the 2 random days in March that we've been talking about off and on? Is that what you're asking me about now?
Yes.
Okay. Dan and I had decided that that was an area we wanted to look at. I'm driving around frequently out there trying to look to see if there's any property, anything that leaps out at us, anything that is all the.
You see, like, she is totally trying to go with this case. Like, I was looking for property. Like, what do you mean? Like, is that what you're talking about? Like, you could just hear, like, she's uncomfortable talking about this. Why, Nancy? Why are you so uncomfortable?
Requirements Dan has. The land has to be flat for gardening. The land has to be fairly treeless so that we don't have the shadow hanging over it. I know what he requires, and I know what I need in the house.
Isn't that state land out there?
It is after fashion, and that's why I didn't go all the way out to where you're saying it was. I went out after fashion, came back.
You just drove out there randomly, were there less than a couple of minutes, and then headed back to Portland on
No,
the
I
26th?
didn't. I didn't do any of the. Wait, let's stop. Ask your question to me again, and let me see if
On the
I can.
26th, the first day, I believe it was a Monday,
Right,
while Dan was at work,
right,
you drove out to that area,
right.
and according to cell site location information, it appears that you drove out there, turned around, and drove back.
I don't think I drove that far out there. I mean, I don't. If I know that it's out there, I know because we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. But I have never, ever, ever been there. And if I had been going there, I would have gone there with Dan, and I would have gone there with. We ended up at the closest I got to it. We had what, 2 minutes, 10 minutes that I could have spent there. I can think.
She is trying to minimize, like, really, if it were innocent, it would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, and I know she is trying to play like dumb and like not remember things, but it's like, what do you, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, I was probably going, like, what was I doing? Who knows? Like, I don't know what I was doing, but I know I wasn't shooting a gun. I'll tell you that. Like, I just feel like if it was genuine that she was not up to anything, it would have come off genuine, and it's not. It's coming off like kind of frantic and like she's trying to, like, excuse it away in some way. So I just, good old Nancy, right? She never fails to disappoint.
If I was just going out to fire a gun at dirt, then I could have found someplace a whole lot closer to my house and driving an hour and a half to make that happen.
So you knew about that gun range.
I had heard about the gun range from the J&B people.
In fact, that's your handwriting, right?
I
On
don't
the
know. I haven't seen that note in ages.
receipt. Okay. So you knew it was there, though.
And I'm not sure that is my handwriting as I'm thinking about it. I think they wrote it down.
Okay.
But I can look at the note again and tell you.
Let's not get lost in the weeds here.
Okay.
You know about the gun range. They
I
told
knew
you
about
about
the
it.
gun range.
Your car just happens to be out in that area on the 26th. I'm sorry, your phone happens to be out in that area on the 26th.
And what I can tell you is, Delilah Marvell's property is west of Banks. Vernonia is northwest. The area Dan wanted to look in is this area, and I was looking, and I can tell you we've been looking for a while. You'll see if you went back and looked at my locations at the kiosk. I frequently was in that area looking, once again, property, what would work. I'm all over town. Now, to be perfectly honest, I don't remember doing any of this, but I'm sure I did it. And since you brought it up so often, I've seriously thought about it. But all I can tell you is it wasn't a day where I thought, whoa, this will be new.
What are you seriously thinking about? Thinking about how you should have done it differently? Like why would that be something that you're seriously thinking about after your husband's murdered? Even if you are on trial, like I would like no, I would be thinking about why are you guys accusing me of this and who is the real murderer? I'm not thinking about this one day or this two, these days I was out in this location and I gave it some serious thought. No. We need to get to who actually killed my husband. And she is not saying that at all because we know who did.
Different. This was just a day. And I'm assuming the reason I'm driving around out there in that area is because I look for property. This is not a situation where I have a clear memory of it. This is a situation where if I was out there on 2 random days in March, then what was happening was I was probably looking for property. And that is my best guess.
Didn't you have lunch with someone that day
I could have. I don't remember.
in Portland?
I have no idea. I mean, let's go back. Let's look at the records. I can probably reconstruct. But where does it say I had lunch?
Didn't you go to Nicholas's restaurant in Northeast Portland on Broadway on the 26th?
Okay, I could have.
Does that sound familiar?
I go there frequently. I have a friend who really likes to go there, and we frequently meet and talk about writing there.
And who were you meeting there?
Oh, well, it's somebody who hasn't testified. It's a woman named Marilyn Hull. Marilyn Hull. Okay. Hull, Hull.
So on the 26th, you get up, you Google how to load a Glock 9mm. You drive out to an area that.
Wait. I don't know that I Googled that, but if you say I did, I'd like to see that. But I could have. I mean, once again, I am messing with gun pieces. I am not messing with research. I am not messing with. So I could have put that in that morning if I had some spare time, because I don't think I gave up the gun research until the beginning of April when I knew I had to get back and finish my other story.
What? She's saying she gave up the gun research in April because she had to get back to finishing the other story. So what? Like, so she's basically saying she finished her plan, right? Because Dan was killed shortly after that. How convenient, Nancy, that your gun research for your story you're not writing yet is conveniently done right around the time your husband needs to be murdered. I didn't even catch that until just now. Like, it's amazing. Like, each time you watch it, like, you get a little bit more. Like, did she really just say that? Like, and you realize that she is the level of inadvertent self snitching is amazing.
Part of the problem is if you don't finish the story you're on, then you have story pieces everywhere. And people say, what's the most difficult thing about writing a book? It's finishing the book. You have to force yourself to finish it. When you've written yourself into a hole, it's real easy to see a new idea out there that would be more interesting. You have to go back and force yourself. So yeah, I had a few months where I flirted with guns, but real frankly, my goal was to finish the book I was on.
Okay, so in March, you are doing research at that point.
I could be, yes.
And can we go and put up State's Exhibit 82?
Sure.
Go there to March 26th, 10:13 a.m. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Searching, loading a 9mm Glock.
Okay.
Immediately after that, searching, cleaning a Glock.
Okay.
And then you get in your car,
Okay.
drive out to an area that has now been established as where that Wolf Creek gun range is.
I don't want to put this back on. Okay, but I can guarantee you that I wouldn't have gone that far, and the reason why is because that's all forested land and it's higher elevation than what Dan wanted. But I'm not going to tell you I wasn't out there because I probably was. You've got video that shows my phone visited it.
And you're out there for no time at all. Basically turn around and drive straight back into Northeast Portland for lunch.
That could be.
Okay.
It could be that that could have happened. I drive a lot in my job. I also drive a lot for meditation, for work, for writing.
What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
You're saying you drove around 2 random days in March. I'm saying my best guess is I was looking for property, but my best guess could have been I was still filling a plot hole too. Are you following me? Then I don't know what I was doing. I'm giving you what I regard as great possibility.
She knows exactly what she was doing, okay? She's not fooling anybody. She knows what she was doing that day.
Of what I was doing.
Great. So you have a nice lunch. You go home.
Mhm.
The next morning, you get up and do the same thing.
Okay.
Dan's at work again.
Okay.
You drive out to the same area,
Mhm.
exact same area,
Mhm.
but you're there for longer. Do you recall that?
I recall the testimony that I've heard.
I'm asking if you recall.
No. No, these are two random. I drive all the time. I don't think about this. I drive when I'm thinking about the story. I drive when I'm working. I work all over this whole area. No, I don't recall 2 random days in March that I was driving around. I can tell you for sure I never went to the gun range.
Would it surprise you that that's the only 2 times that your phone, as far back as the phone records go that we have, when you head out that way, that it's the only time you don't go all the way to the coast?
No, that can't possibly be true. And the reason why that can't possibly be true is because I have a lot of clients in Vernonia, and I would have gone out to see them, if nothing else, during Medicare season.
There's the Vernonia. So it's on the way to Vernonia. But you could see the way she's like, no, that can't be true because this, that, and the other. And it's like, but you just tried to act like you couldn't remember. So how are you so adamantly convinced that no, that can't be true? How is that possible?
Clients, I drive all over. I love Vernonia. I think it is a charming little town. But that does not mean that could possibly have been the only times I was out there that I didn't go to the coast.
Do you agree on the 26th and 27th you didn't go to Vernonia?
I don't remember going to Vernonia, but your records show that I didn't go to Vernonia, and I'm willing to believe you.
I want to talk about Dan's routines.
Okay.
We got a lot of testimony in this case. I think you'd agree that he held a pretty strict routine. Is that correct?
Yes.
Whatever it was, whether it was what time he left for work or
Depending on the day. He held strict routine depending on what his schedule was for the day.
I think you testified that within a 30-minute window, pretty much he got up at the same time every day. Didn't matter if he was going to work.
That's absolutely true.
What time was that?
It was between 4 and 4:30.
That's when he would wake up. Okay. And I think you testified too, and I know you told the police that he walked the dogs, take care of the chickens, sometimes go get you coffee. That was pretty routine for him. Okay. Anything else?
He frequently, if he needed to do something like go to Wojimaya in the morning, he would do that. He did shopping for his class or for whatever he was doing, usually early in the morning. He worked in the garden early in the morning.
It sounds like you two kind of did your own thing during the day. Like he would go to work, you had your things. Sorry, your things to do. Like you would have go and meet clients, things like that. But you didn't work together.
That's not true. We frequently worked together.
You worked at OCI.
No, but we worked together on different things. If he had a class outside of OCI, for example, I might take things down to him.
It's ridiculous how she tries to, like, all the prosecution attorney is just saying like, oh, but you guys didn't work together. And she's like, that's not true. We did work together. She's just trying to make it seem like we were partners. We were, you know, in it together. And it's like, ma'am, just let him finish his line of questioning. Like, what are you talking about right now? You guys did not work together. Okay. Ridiculous. She's so ridiculous, Nancy.
I took things down to OCI for Dan 3 to 4 times a month because he would get to school and realize he'd left something. So we worked together in terms of doing things, but not necessarily on projects.
Right.
Am I being clear?
Not really.
Okay. Good.
So would you say that generally you knew where Dan was?
Yes, I would say that.
And in general, would he know where you were?
In general, he would know where I was.
You guys would communicate. I'm going to work, or I'm coming home, or whatever.
Yes, or I sold a policy, or the dogs are having an issue, or whatever. We were in constant contact.
Okay. And in general, I know it depends on what kind of stuff is happening at OCI. On the weekends, did Dan generally leave around the same time?
In general, did Dan leave around the same time every day? No, it would depend on what his schedule was. If he was working weekends, he left at a different time. If he was working days, he worked at a different time. If he was going mushroom hunting, he left at a different time.
Listen to the question. The question is, on the weekends,
All right.
when going to OCI,
Right.
did he generally leave at the same time?
I would say within a 30-minute window, yeah.
Okay. And on June 2nd, did you expect for him to leave earlier that day because of the live fire?
It wouldn't have surprised me for him to, but Dan was always prepared. Dan took being a Boy Scout to heart, and he was always prepared. We went to a party where somebody cut themselves
Another condescending remark. He took being a Boy Scout to heart. Excuse me? Like it's just she's always trying to condescend his efforts because he's organized, because he's dedicated, because he cares about what he does. He took being a Boy Scout to heart. How about you just call him he was a dedicated man. He valued what he did. But it's always like a funny little quip behind it to say like, "Oh, well, and it's like it's so evident she did not respect him and did not appreciate him and I would say somewhat despised him, was jealous of him. And we'll get into that, I'm sure. So yeah.
With a knife. Who had a medical kit? Dan. He was Mr. Prepared. So he could have left earlier. He could have been well enough prepared that he didn't need to.
And in preparation for that live fire, he actually took 2 carts down to the school the day before, correct?
That wasn't in preparation for the live fire. He took two.
Oh, just okay.
He took 2 carts down because he does that every weekend.
Gotcha. He does that every Friday.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I hate to commit to every Friday. He does it every weekend, but the days he chooses to do it are his days.
And you were aware that he did that Friday, June 1st.
I was.
Okay. And Dan generally parks on 17th in front of the Culinary Institute.
No, I think he parks there a fair amount, but he also parks on Madison. He rarely uses a lot because he's one of the lucky people who have a parking sticker.
Right. He can park on the street.
Yeah, and he parks wherever he parks. I mean, I don't think he has assigned parking or even his idea of assigned parking.
Does it make sense to you, though, that when he is bringing things to the school, that he would park on 17th so that he could unload and load into the school?
That would make sense. But I would also say when he and the Starbucks across the street were doing 5-gallon buckets of coffee grounds, he parked on Jefferson so he could deal with that.
Okay. You stated that you knew that the doors would usually be locked at the school. Is that true?
The doors were always locked. As far as I know, I don't know of an incident where anything but the student door would have been open, that people could have gone in and out.
We'll talk about the school in a little bit more in just a
Okay.
second. You sort of mentioned this. Actually, I think you did mention it, that Dan always had cash.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just kind of the guy he was? He liked to deal in cash as opposed to cards and credit cards?
I can't stand how no one makes them say yes or no. Like it's such a like I didn't realize I'm a courtroom snob now, but are not permitted. The court reporter cannot record And the amount of this judge is allowing, I don't know. It's just frustrating me. But I just had to say that. Sorry, guys.
Operated with cash, and so he needed a lot of ones because of the cart. So he frequently would have little money bundles of ones at home from either money he'd made off the cart or what have you. He operated with cash more, but it was largely for the cart.
Right. And it's true that he often didn't even know how much money was in his own account, right?
Dan was more routine than that. I wouldn't say he didn't know how much was in his account. I would say it differently. I would say Dan had the reason why we broke up our finances the way we did was because his expenses were much more routine and he could figure out his money based upon the fact his check was much more routine than my life was.
Right. But he would actually reach out to you to ask you if his check had been deposited, right?
Yes. He occasionally he would call me and say, I need you to look at the bank account and tell me this or that.
I'm about to start a new subject. I don't know if you want to.
All right, let's go ahead and take our morning break then and be back on the record at 10:45.
Okay, they don't play in this courtroom for their breaks. They're just like, okay, we're on break right now. Like, oh, everything. It's no hemming and hawing about it. They're just like on break right now. So I just realized actually. So the next part is because they come back from break and it's about an hour. So I do think I messed this up because I for some reason I thought it was like 30 minutes and I thought I can combine the two, but I couldn't. So this is gonna be like a kind of intermission vibe, and then the next one's gonna be closing it out completely. I know I said this was closing it out. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh yeah, da 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 da. But no, it was like a genuine accident. I just realized I was like, wait a minute, when is it? Because I know it finishes out the morning, and there's probably about once you come back from break, it's probably about an hour left. So I am gonna just put this together as one. And just reiterating, like, if I could just take a quick moment to reiterate how great of a guy Dan Brophy was, and how unfortunate that he ran into this psychopath, Nancy Brophy. Well, I need to get her maiden name, and that's what I like. That is really what we should call her, because it's like she shouldn't even, if you murder someone, you shouldn't be allowed to be called their name. You're only that name because of them. And same thing if you're murdered by them. Well, you know what I mean. So if for instance a female takes a male's name, she should no longer be called whatever. Like, I was going to use the Peterson murder, but I mean, Watts. Like, if I were Shanann's family, I would want her to be called by her maiden name, not by Shanann Watts, because it's like I don't even want her being associated with that, But I mean, whatever. But my whole grievance. Oh, let me do this transition. I'm learning, guys. Okay, so it's full screen. So my grievance though is that i- it's just not. It's not done, and it's one of those things I just have to accept. But she shouldn't be allowed to be calling herself Nancy Brophy, in my opinion, but we'll call her that. He was a great guy, Dan. He was a great guy. He was loved by his students. Everyone had a nice thing to say about him. Everyone genuinely cared about him. And she seems like the only person that really was disgusted by him and just like so like, ugh, you're beneath me kind of vibes. And it's just like, who do you think you are, Nancy? So yeah, I don't care for her. But I mean that's clear and evident. Um so I think that's where I'm gonna leave it today. I think I'm gonna just do the next part and just bang it out, get it done, put it together, and wrap it up. Wrap it up, Nancy, and then see where these conversations go. I'm so excited to um sort of wrap up this so that I can really focus on the other things that I have still pending, i.e., Jennifer Crumbly. I need to just wrap that reaction up, and I'm not going to let any spoilers out right now, so that's to come. Um and yeah, so I'll leave it here, guys, and thank you guys so much. I will catch you guys on the flippity flip. Bye.